we're going to start with a word of prayer. If I'm going to ask somebody to give us an opening prayer. Let me see. Brother David Samuel, can you give us an opening prayer, please? And unmute yourself.
Good morning, everyone. Dear Heavenly Father, we come to you thanking you for this day of Thanksgiving that you have given us. Lord, we coming to you, we're having a safety meeting virtually this morning. And we ask that everybody that's attending or on, that Lord, that you will give them a blessing for this day. And we thank them so much for the ones that are attending, so that we'll be able to do what is needed in the safety for the churches. We thank you for giving us grace. We thank you for having mercy on us. Now we ask that, Lord, as we go through this meeting, that we'll all come away with something that will help as we go forward in ministering and safety. In Jesus' name I pray, amen.
Amen, amen. Thank you very much, my brother, for that powerful prayer. I just want to welcome everyone to South Atlantic Leadership Training or Session. Feel free to unmute yourself when you are ready to talk. Can everyone hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yes. I can.
All right, excellent, excellent. Yeah, so at this time, we're gonna start with introduction. We're gonna just give ourselves introduction, briefly, where you are from and what church you participate, and I know this is safety, but you can still say I'm the safety director leader in that church. We'll start with Brother Moore, Dwight Moore.
Good morning, and thank you for having me this morning. It's God be the glory for being here. My name is Dwight Moore, and I'm the safety coordinator for the Macon Bethany Church in Macon, Georgia, under the new leadership of Pastor Greg Stinson. This is my first year as safety. However, I've been involved with safety and in one way or another, and also have been an elder in the Macon Bethany Church for a number of years. So I'm excited to join you this morning and to learn whatever I can that will be useful in aiding the safety of the saints at the Macon Bethany Church. Thank you, and once again, good morning.
Thank you. You're welcome, my brother. We're going to slide to Brother David Summer.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Gary Sicard. I am the Safety and Risk Officer at Mountainside Seventh-day Adventist Church in Decatur, Georgia. This is going to be my 8th year of doing this. I just keep getting thrown in the mix for some reason. You know, I don't know why nobody else wants to secure the church, but it seems that they're giving it to me because I have a law enforcement background as well as intelligence background. I have, in the last 2 years prior to COVID, I have put in some safety requirements in the church, everything from security cameras to deacons having radios. And, you know, I go through a annual check with, what you call that again? Safety with everyone in the church that want to join the meeting at the church. Basically, I get one of my fellow friends that work at the DCAP Police Department and come and do a training for the church in regarding safety. You know, everything from, you know, hostage taking, how to, you know, down talk someone that may have some mental issues and things of that nature. So I've been doing that for Mountainside every year, besides the COVID years. You know, for the last 8 years. And I thought that, you know, I wouldn't have to serve this year, but Pastor Sherrod basically twisted my arms and literally put a cross to my head and basically made me do it all over again. So, this is where I'm at right now. But I'll be jumping in and out with you guys because I do have I take some individual people to a shooting range to train them how to shoot. So I'm glad to be here with you guys. You know, any which way I could help you guys secure your church, please contact me. I'll be more than happy to go over some security protocols as well as, you know, cameras and certain locks and things that could really help the church, especially in this day and age that we're living in, with all these things that's going on in churches and synagogues and mosques and so on and so forth. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Brother Gary. And we appreciate the work you do for the Lord. Who is next? Brother David? David Samuel?
Yes. My name is, I'm Deacon David Samuel. I'm an assistant, and I'm also the safety officer coordinator. This is my first year being the safety office coordinator, so I'm very interested in learning more about how we can keep our church safe, the things that needs to be safe in the church and around the property of the church. So I'm looking forward to get a lot of information for those that has more experience with it, but I'm just excited to get started and find out what others are doing to keep their churches safe, as well as me helping to keep ours safe. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Brother Samuel. We appreciate you. iPhone 2, if you could put your name, please, so we can know who you are. iPhone 2. Brother Keith Brown.
Yes, good morning, everyone. My name is Keith Brown. As you can see, I am from First Lithonia SDA Church. This is my third year as risk and safety officer for the church. Like the brother who spoke earlier, we have been kind of embarking in quite a few safety measures for the building. We have installed cameras. We have a panic button. We have a church and school in one. So we had to do some additional safety measures because we have a school at Lithonia as well. So we have installed a panic button in light of what's going on. And if ever a time our job is important as safety officers, it's now, because we see what's going on all over the country when it comes to places of worship. So I'm delighted to be here today to share, and I'm looking forward to learning from each of you. I hope that today's meeting is just not the only time that we will get together. I think this is a good meeting that we could collaborate and share ideas, because we all suffer and face the same challenges and when it comes to safety. So I'm really looking forward to learning from each of you today. And I hope that I'll get to work with you, and that the session will be a productive one. You all have a blessed day.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, Brother Brown. Brother James Hill. Just
Good morning.
unmute you.
Yeah, I'm on that. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, I just stepped in, so I'm not sure. Get me up to speed of what we're doing here.
Okay, just a self-introduction, a brief introduction.
Oh, okay.
Who you are, what church you represent.
Okay, I am Elder Hill from the Manning Maranatha Seventh-day Adventist Church in Manning, South Carolina. I'm mostly a Sabbath school teacher. I'm not sure if we have a safety officer. That's why I stepped in here, because I'm sure if we do have one, I don't know who it is. And our church is relatively small, so I thought I would have known. But anyhow, I want to step in on that, get in on this seminar to ensure as much safety as we can ensure for our members as possible, and take it back, implement these ideas So whatever you guys come up with will be brand new to me. So I'm all ears and eyes on this one right here.
All right. Thank you very much, Brother Hill. Let's go to, is that Josio and
Recording stopped.
Pamango?
Josue Hamaguru here.
Yeah, just make it brief, everyone, so we don't run out of time.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. Thank you for reminding me to put my name. I didn't know that my name was not showing up. Yeah, I'm Josue Mayamaguru. I'm representing Shiloh Seventh-day Adventist Church here in North Charleston, South Carolina. And I was designated to be the safety coordinator here in the church. It's my first time. I know I have a lot to learn, so that's why I'm here. Thank you so much. Bye.
Thank you very much, brother. Just let's make it quick, short, and easy so we don't run out of time. I'm gonna go to who else? Let me see, Brother Bradley Houghton. Okay, Brother William Mackenzie. Okay, go ahead.
Good morning. My name is again Brother Bradley, Carlton Bradley. I'm with Ebenezer 7-day in Augusta. This is my first year doing safety officer. I spent 29 years in public service as far as being fire safety, fire education, fire investigation. So a lot of background as far as safety, dealing with safety. And again, just look forward to learning today. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Sister Brenda Grant. Just a brief introduction of yourself.
Good morning. My name is Brenda Stokes, and I'm the safety officer for Savannah West Broad. And I've been the officer for several years now.
Okay, thank you. Brother Branson.
He overlooked me. Yeah, he did, but the other person talked. So, but I guess he don't recognize me. But if you hear my voice, you know.
Yeah, we can hear you. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, he reacts if he miss anybody.
Go ahead. We just need a brief introduction to your name and the church.
Then how? Come anytime. I'm in a meeting, but anytime if I'm speaking, then you can't say anything.
Okay, we're gonna go to Amber.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Brother Craig Hodge. I'm the security leader at my church, Shiloh SDA Church in Smyrna, Georgia.
Thank you. We're gonna go to Joyce, Sister Joyce. All right, we're gonna go to Brother Allison Hathaway.
Good morning. This is Allison Hathaway with the Maranatha Seventh-day Adventist Church in Atlanta. So I'm on to give us some information as being building committee chair and finding out more information for safety protocols for our church.
All right, thank you. Did I miss anyone?
Yes, sir.
Okay, but I was reserving you at the walk at the last. Yeah, Bobby, not you, Brother Bobby Walker.
Bobby Walker, Cannon Heights 7-day Adventist in Thompson, Georgia. This is my first time being in safety leader of the church. So I'm just trying to get as much information as I can to help protect our church family.
All right, thank you very much. Did I miss anyone?
Teresa Kelly, Emmanuel Temple 7-day Adventist Church in Durham, North Carolina.
and William McKenzie, Raleigh Gethsemane Church.
I see you, Brother Mackenzie. Thank you. Anyone else? All right. I'm going to let Brother Horace Walker to introduce himself.
Well, good morning to everyone. My name is Horace Walker, and I've been asked to be your presenter today. Tell you a little bit about me. I'm spent 38 years on the Atlanta Police Department. I obtained the rank of major. I ran most of the major squads in the department, homicide, SWAT. I'm a hostage negotiator. I'm a bomb tech. I'm a firearms instructor, defensive tactics instructor. In fact, you name it, I've probably done it. I retired from the police department and became the regional director for the Southeastern United States for the Motion Picture Association. At some point, I left that, and I was very thankful to God, because out of all the stuff I've done in my life, He protected me. And I promised that if He allowed me to retire in good health and sound mind, that I would do everything I could to do something to help my people. So what I decided to do years ago was to create a company that specialized in church and school security. And presently, that's what I do for the Seventh-day Adventist Church. I'm a member of the Berean Seventh-day Adventist Church, been there probably since 1970. And I've spent my time devoted to helping keep God's people safe. I have to apologize for not being on at the start, because I ran into some technical difficulties on my end. And I'm in Zoom meetings all the time, but for some reason, I could not find you guys. So I had to reboot my computer and start all over again. And so I'm glad that I finally made it.
Man.
I heard some individuals say that they are part of a security team already. But I want to talk about the structure of how I want this session to go. And basically, it involves 4 aspects of security. First part asks the question, why do we need security at church? Because many years ago, when we started talking about the need for church security, there was a lot of pushback. You know, this is a church. Things don't happen here. And a lot of people were looking at God, but they really weren't looking at what was taking place in the world around them, in society. Second thing we want to discuss is what steps are needed to develop a church security plan. Some of you probably have developed security plans already, but a lot of churches don't. So we want to talk about how to develop that plan. The third aspect will be, what do you need to put together a church security plan? What are the resources? What actually do you need to do in order to be able to do it? And the fourth will be the type of training needed. Now, I have a PowerPoint presentation that I am going to attempt to bring into this. So I'm going to click a button that says share screen, and I'm going to go back and try to pull the presentation up. So hopefully I won't mess up. If it doesn't work, we'll just talk it through. But give me a second to see if this works.
While you are doing that, Brother Walker, let me just say a few announcements
Okay.
from the conference director. My name is Falo Dimonga. A member of Urban Chapel. I've been a safety officer for quite some time, but I'm not here because of the church, but I'm here because of what I've been asked to do. We have a safety director in our church. I hope she's here also. Pastor Preston gave me a few announcements to make. The church inspection is due on May 16th. That's the first inspection. Write that down. May 16th. May 16th. That's the first inspection report. The second inspection report is on November 6th. We have 2 inspections that are due to the conference. First one, May 16th. The last one is November 6th. Also, the safety Sabbath is on March 25th. Safety Sabbath, March 25th. And we want you to do a fire drill on that safety Sabbath. Please do a fire drill in your churches. And also, number 3, the safety officer duties. I hope everyone here knows the duties of a safety officer. If you do not know, go to adventistrisk.org and click resources. You'll find information about the safety Sabbath and also the fire drill. You'll find pretty much everything what you need in there. Okay? If you have any question, feel free to call me. My phone number is 910-260-3149.
Can you repeat the website?
AdventistRisk.org. Okay. AdventistRisk.org. And you are encouraged to sign in, put your email in there so you can be receiving updates.
I didn't quite understand that name again on that website.
AdventistRisk.org.
Telephone number again?
AdventistRisk.org. Yeah.
Your number.
Oh, 910-260-3149. All right, back to you, Brother Walker.
Okay, I couldn't get it to open up, so we'll talk it through. I'll go slow so everybody can understand. Okay, we talked about the 4 frames in which we'll be working. Do we need security? What steps are needed to develop a church security plan? Equipment needs, equipment needed to implement the plan, and the types of training. So let's go with the first. How common is violence in churches? And we're going to look at the wider view as opposed to just the Seventh-day Adventist Church. There was a time when it became almost unheard of to have a crime occur in a church. As a police officer, I remember the time when churches were left unlocked and nobody would go in and take anything. But that was a long time ago. Times have changed. We now lock our churches. We have purchased camera systems and alarm systems. And from a criminal standpoint, churches are probably one of the easiest targets that you'll find, because people in churches don't believe that anybody will victimize a church. And I'm here to tell you in 2022, that's not true. Since 1999, there have been approximately 18 deaths that have occurred in churches. Some of them you've probably seen on TV. Since 2000, between 2000, the year 2000 and 2016, there have been approximately 1,652 incidents in churches. What I mean by incidents are these are situations where people have not died. They've been assaulted, they've been stabbed, they've been shot, but it did not result in a death. The 18 number I referred to are actual deaths that have occurred inside or on church property. Now, to bring it a little bit closer to home, there have been 3 incidents that have occurred in Georgia that led to deaths. 2 occurred at the World Changers Church, which is located here in College Park in Atlanta. One of them occurred in 2005, and I think the second one occurred in 2012. And we had another one that occurred in Kirkwood, Georgia. I have no idea where that is, but it's located in the state of Georgia. So don't think that incidents don't occur in other places, because they occur in your neighborhoods, in your states. And we have been blessed because the incidents have not happened at your church. Most of the incidents that occurred, not all of them occurred during church service, because we're talking about on church property. Some of them occurred after service, and normally after church service, staff members, everybody's in a relaxed mode. The doors are left open. People are allowed to come in and roam around. So nobody's at a high state of alert. And a lot of situations occur during that period of time. A lot of situations happen between church employees and people that they know. A lot of them are domestic situations. But the reality is, in 2022, we have to be watchful in terms of security, because incidents do occur and people die sometimes as a result of them. So hopefully that answers the question of why we need to have security in our church. The second part of the frame we're going to talk about is what steps are needed to develop a security plan. When you get ready to develop a security plan, it should answer one basic question, and that should be, what should we do if? And that should apply to any given situation that you might encounter. The types of plans that you need to think in terms are medical plans that address medical emergencies. On a frequent basis at the Berean Church, we have people who have medical emergencies. Fire and smoke emergencies. You never know when you're gonna have a fire to start in your facility. And the time to develop a plan is not when it occurs. The time to actually think about and develop a plan is before the occurrence. Because if you wait until it happens, you're going to have confusion. Building evacuation plans. If you had to evacuate your church suddenly, how would you do it? Who would take the leadership in that role? Severe weather. What happens if you're in church service and you get a warning saying that in 2 minutes a tornado is going to hit? What do? Who is responsible for taking the lead on that? The most popular one today is an active shooter scenario. Or you have an intruder who comes in as armed. What do? Who takes the lead for that? Communications. How do you communicate that there is a pending danger in your church? A lot of people develop the plan, but they don't spend a lot of time talking about the communications aspect of it. And we'll talk about that a little bit later. And one of the things that I'm big on is having designated hours of operations. And what I'm talking about is opening and closing the building. You have a calendar that clearly states when you're going to have events. Do you have a opening and closing procedure? Who opens the church? Who closes it? And at what time do they do that? Do you have people at your church at 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning? Those are the type of things that you need to think about because they're very important if you're talking about safety in your church, and especially if you're looking at it from a liability standpoint. You have a female working in your church. She's by herself and something happens. There's a liability aspect that goes along with that. So you need to come up with procedures that address those issues. Basically, what I'm saying is that when you have volunteers or employees in your church, you should never leave an individual alone. There's always safety in numbers. And there are some churches and situations that leave female employees in the church by themselves. And you don't think that about the repercussions of what could happen if somebody were to enter that train. I mean, the church. The next frame we're going to talk about is training. Once you go through the previous steps and you come up with the personnel that you're going to use, then how do you train them? What do? How do you develop a training plan that's specifically developed for your facility? Because all churches are different. They're all different sizes, but you need to spend some time in terms of thinking about how you're going to conduct your training for your personnel. Let's go back and dig a little bit deeper. How many of you have security plans in your church? Develop security plans. Let me see your hands. Nobody? I'm not surprised. I'm really not.
We do at Mountainside.
Oh, you do at Mountainside? Okay, great.
Yeah, Lithonia has a plan.
Okay.
Raleigh also has a plan.
New
Bethel
SCA.
Macon Bethany has a plan.
Okay.
Savannah has a plan.
Okay.
If
Is it a written plan? Is it a written plan?
New Bethel SCA, yes.
That's great. That's great. That's great. When you have written plans, you find out that everybody is on the same sheet of music. Everybody has a clear understanding of the roles that they play and when they should take responsibility for certain aspects. So it's very important that you sit down and you develop a plan. And again, as I stated earlier, what you do is you ask the question, what do we do in any given situation? Now I'm going to get away from a plan and we're going to talk. I like to have common sense talks with people because security to me is common sense. And I'll admit that common sense is not common. It should be, but common sense is really not common. And what I'm going to endeavor to do is to use real life situations at my church, because I think that they are probably going to be typically what you have happen in a variety of churches. And the way I'm going to do it is with what I call a series of tabletop exercises. And tabletop exercises are where you talk about situations that could occur, and it forces you to think in terms of what you need to do before it occurs. Okay, let me ask the question. And I'm just gonna ask for a show of hands in terms of how we answer. And this is gonna be an interactive training. It's not just me talking. I want you to talk among yourselves, because this is where you learn the importance of having a training plan. Okay, scenario number one. One of the ushers observes an individual acting suspicious in the congregation. He enters the church carrying multiple black bags, and he has a dog on a leash. He is wearing dog shades, and when he enters the church, he immediately sits in the rear of the church. People that are sitting around this individual get nervous. They bring him to the attention of the ushers. How do you handle that situation in your church? What do you do?
Number one, he should have been stopped at the front door.
By who?
By the deacons, because of the fact that they are individuals in charge of welcoming everyone inside of the church, as well as the ushers. If you have your training programs already established, and you have written information and instructions, that's a no-brainer. He or she would have been stopped at the door. Sir or ma'am, what are you doing with all these bags? You cannot bring them in. If there's a confrontation, there should already be someone standing by waiting to get on the phone to talk to 911.
Okay.
I don't know about that, because in a simple greeting, you'll be able to ascertain this person may have a special needs dog and be vision impaired. And a simple greeting at the front door, you may be able to ascertain if there's a special needs before a major confrontation. Some people are bag people. You ask my wife and she's got a zillion bags. And I think that a simple greeting.
The key word was duffel bag.
Well, I didn't hear
black bags. Black bags.
I heard black bags. Yeah. So I didn't determine that they were a threat. And I think a simple greeting at the front door, you will be able to ascertain if there is a visually impaired person. And when we don't necessarily know how they're traveling, but they could be traveling with certain belongings with them. So I think it all begins because we don't want to start off as being threatening, right. But we just want to ask some basic questions, and you can determine that in a greet. You know, we may determine that the dog has a special vest on, that identifies a dog as a seeing impaired AA dog. So you can determine those things without becoming threatening.
Anybody else?
Yeah, this is Brother Hodge from Shiloh SDA Smyrna. I agree. Both gentlemen got valid points. We cannot just assume. That's the worst thing that we can do is assume that this person is automatically, just because they have a black bag, is posing a threat. Like the second brother just said, that dog may be a service dog, service animal, and he may need that dog for survival, whether it's emotional support, visual impairment, so on and so forth. In the bag may have the dog's equipment, food, treats, or anything else. We cannot assume. So greeting them at the door, yes. Having a open conversation with them, feeling them out and seeing, exactly where they are. Paying attention to their behavioral body language and so on and so forth. But the scenario is they made it into the church. What do we do? Okay, so they came into the church and they sat down. And that usher observed him. That usher should make some sort of visual contact to whomever the security on duty is, and make the security on duty aware of there's someone that appears to be, outside of the ordinary. And that security individual should then key in on that person and start monitoring, that person on a greater level. Just for a basic answer right now.
Well, if I may chime in, one, we said the individual sat in the back by himself. So that is a clue that someone from the church should be assigned to always be with newcomers. When a person sits in the back, that means someone needs to join them and at least try to engage and make them feel welcome before we assume that the individual is a threat. That is the first thing that we should do. Now, after we have sat down with the individual, if he continues to be nervous or is agitated, then that is the time that we step away from the individual and call our security to notify the proper authorities. But again, we greet them, we welcome them, okay, before we assume that they are a threat.
Well, although I'm a little bit worried about that, my brother Tito, because when I look back at the situation where that white kid went in those church, he was welcome in the church and he was there, and then he went ahead and shot those people anyway. So if all the protocols were followed at coming in the church, and by now he's in the church, and if there are other people around him who's feeling uncomfortable, I think security, whether it's the deacon or whoever's in charge of security, should be notified, and further action should be taken. Because once a member is starting to feel uncomfortable, that means there's something going on. And we're hoping that the protocols were followed. Now he's in the building. People are still feeling uncomfortable. They may not have known his situation. Some people may feel uncomfortable because he's there with a dog and all these bags. The usher, if all the protocols were followed, should probably just kind of let the people sitting around give them some heads up that this person is okay. But if we still notice that something is going on, I think deacon or whoever is in charge should be notified, and then some action should be taken.
Okay, let's take a couple more.
I know I spoke before. I'll give way to anyone else who hasn't spoken yet, but I'd like to come back at this time.
Go ahead.
I would disagree with that, because we cannot assume that everyone is there to cause us harm. The church is an open place. Even a homeless person is welcome. In fact, a homeless person would make most of us feel uncomfortable. Okay? Because he doesn't smell right, he doesn't look right, but he's come to the house of God. And we should welcome him as a brother until that brother proves otherwise. If we're going to close our doors to everyone who doesn't look right or make us feel uncomfortable, then we're not doing our jobs as Christians.
Okay, let's take one more.
I think you know, our greeting ministry is a key ministry in our church, and our greeters should be very well trained, and first they should be not threatening, but they should be a welcome a ministry, but not just naive to just welcoming someone into the church, but they should be able to pick up on certain things right off the bat as someone walks into the door. I think as they ask questions, this person had on dark glasses, had a dog. They may be able to ask certain open questions where they are able to ascertain if this person has a special visual need. So the greeting ministry is very key, and they can elevate if they are suspicious, or go the opposite direction if the situation doesn't deem a high alert. But it's key that we have key individuals at each entrance, and that way they'll be able to determine if the person truly has a disability. They can escort the person in, put them in a seat where they're comfortable. And often people with dogs don't want to be right up in front. You know, I also work in hospitality in the hotel motel industry for some 27 years. And, you know, there are certain aspects of recognizing a visually impaired person. This person had on the glasses, had you know, the dog, and the dog has a harness often with identification that would suggest that there is a special needs animal. So if the person has made it all the way to the sanctuary, all these things should have been figured out before they got to the sanctuary by key individuals, and where it lessens our suspicion. And I just think that you have to have key people in key positions, and not just there for decoration.
Right. Now, all of you have just talked about why you need to have a security plan. Because without a plan, when you're faced with that situation, there's confusion. And just like you had different people with different solutions to this scenario, in a real life situation, you're going to have the same problem. Everybody is going to have their own way of handling it. And I stated this was a real life situation. And let me tell you how it was handled. The person who came in walked into the church. He went through 3 layers of church personnel. And I'll put a pin right there. In most churches, you have 3 to 4 layers of church personnel. You normally have greeters, ushers. Some churches divide them into 2 separate entities. Greeters are normally people that are at the front door that will greet you, that will get your name and take information from you. The ushers are normally the people you meet once you enter the sanctuary. And they are the people that direct you to your seating. You have the deacons, who normally are the watchdogs of the church. They take up the collection, they assist the ushers or anybody that they can, and they normally address problems. And then a lot of churches now, you have your security team. So somebody stated it earlier. When he came into the lobby of the church, he was met by the greeters. There are certain questions that should have been asked at that point, but they didn't. When he got inside to the ushers, in this real life situation, the ushers alerted the security team and the deacons. The guy came in, he had on African garb. He was about 6'3". He had a dog that didn't have any vest on or anything. He was just on a leash and he had dog glasses. And when he came into church, he was looking from side to side. When he sat down, he came in with a bunch of black bags. Now, I suggest if you have not done it, the conference website in risk management has a series of videos. One of the videos talks about intruders, armed intruders in your facility. If you haven't looked at it, take a peek at it. What you will see is that the guy who comes into church has his weapon and his ammunition in a bag. But take the time to look at it, because that will prepare you or start you to think in terms of what you need to do if you have an armed intruder. But the gentleman sat down, the ushers kept an eye on him. A member of the security team went and sat right beside him. We have ushers, deacons, elders, and a photographer that are part of our security team. Okay? Elders are more equipped to talk to people on a spiritual level by virtue of their position. So when we have a problem at the Berean church, we normally have an elder, 2 elders that are assigned to the security team. So they will approach a non-threatening person. And he went over and talked to the guy. And during the conversation, found out that the guy was blind. He used a dog to lead him in, and he sat at the first available seat once he came in the door. Along with being blind, he was homeless. So that's why he had a number of bags with him. The elder went over and had a conversation with him. The guy talked and said, "Hey, look, I need Jesus." Make a long story short, he ended up joining the church. He was baptized about a month and a half later. But my whole point is, you have to be careful about how you approach people, because sometimes what you think you see is not what you see. But the greeters allowed him to come in. The second line, the ushers observed it. They sounded the alarm. The security team responded. So we were able to very quietly handle that situation. Now at the Berean church, along with the security team, one of the things we do is we employ active duty police officers. They normally stay outside of the sanctuary. It's a church. And I think somebody earlier, I think Brother Wilson made a good point. It's a church. We tell people to bring your problems to the church, to come as you are. And you have some people in 2022 that won't come with a suit and tie. We've had drug dealers to come to church. Known drug dealers, they will actually come to church and sit there and enjoy the service and leave money in the collection plate. It's a church. It's not like a business. And that's what makes church security so unique, because you can't handle situations in a church the same way as you would in your business or at work. There's a difference. So you have to approach people cautiously but you have to remember that you're a church and that people are invited to your church when they have problems, when they're troubled. But again, this emphasizes why you need to have a pre-planned security plan. Now, let me ask the question. Somebody alluded to the fact that you would notify the deacons. How would you do that? How would you let them know?
You could have radio.
Hey, Elder.
I was the one who said that. We do have radio at our church.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I'd like to make a comment right there. This is Mackenzie from Raleigh.
Okay.
We have secret means of communication, which is developed between the safety team and the various stakeholders, that is deacons, ushers, etc. So
okay.
General membership might not recognize that somebody is communicating with a member of the safety team. And so safety team members then would take a seat either beside that person or behind that person. So there are ways to communicate without the general body or that person becoming aware.
Okay, but my question is, how do you communicate a problem to someone else? I know you say you have codes, but how do you do it?
In our church, we have radio with earpieces, so it's not necessarily putting a walkie-talkie to the mouth, but there's concealed earpieces and mics, and the safety team, an elder. We even have a video room, and the video persons have a way of looking at people that aren't threatening, so they too can communicate if they should see something in the in the production of the video production. If they see something, they too can communicate. So 99% of it is done by word of radio communication.
Okay, anybody else? So far I heard radios and codes.
Well, this is Brother Wilson from Calvary, Jacksonville, North Carolina. All that is fine for the large churches, but for your smaller churches, I will be more than happy to hear a solution for us.
Well, what we're talking about is for all churches, big or small, it doesn't matter about the size. My question is, how do you communicate? If you see a problem, how do you communicate?
In our church, we use text messaging through our cell phone.
Okay, now let me ask you a question.
Yes, sir.
If a person came in with a gun and started shooting, do you think that you would have the presence of mind to pick up a phone and send a text?
No, sir.
Okay, and that's what I'm after. I want you to think, realistically think about how you would communicate. Code words and hand signals are based upon somebody hearing and seeing. But what if you are caught in a situation where you observe something and nobody's close enough to see it? What do you do? Think about it. What we do in our church is we use walkie-talkies, and this is a walkie-talkie. Technology has changed. Both of them are made by Motorola, a Cobra. Yeah, Cobra. But this is what we use. This one, you can clip to your inside pocket of your suit. You can put it on your belt. You press a button to talk, and you release it to listen. Same principle as this. Think about it. If something happens you push a button and you talk. And if you have several members in the church who have those walkie-talkies, everybody hears it at the same time. If there's a gunman in the building and you press the button and say, there's a guy at the back door with a gun, the key people are alerted instantly. Now, if a guy comes in with a gun, realistically, do you think he's going to stand there and let you go through and pick up the phone and do this and try to tell people? No, because if I were the gunman, the first people that I would endeavor to hurt are those with phones. A walkie-talkie, I wear mine close to my lapel. I just take my hand and push a button and just talk. Nobody can see what I'm doing, but whatever I'm saying is transmitted to my team. So walkie-talkies or an established means of communications are great. Now, hand signals and codes, they're great if you can say them to people. Codes are great in a school where you have an intercom, where you can come on and say code red, a code blue, a code yellow. But in a church environment, can you go up to the mic and take it from the pastor and say, Pastor, I need to make this announcement? You can't. It's not possible to do. So what I'm doing, attempting to do is to force you to think what happens if this occurs. And that's what security planning is all about. Coming up with the plan before it happens. Now, in my church, I have a long-standing code with the pastor that if I come up and stand on the right-hand side of the church and I fold my arms, then that's my way of telling him that there's something going on. I can't tell him, he won't know what it is, but he'll know to kind of look around and pay attention. That's a code I have worked out with the pastor. But the members of my security team, we communicate via our walkie-talkies. How many of you have Apple Watches?
Well, I have a smartwatch. It's I don't do Apple. I do the.
This only applies to Apple.
Okay. No.
Okay.
Apple.
How many have Apple Watches? Okay. Do you know that your Apple Watch has a built-in walkie-talkie feature? It does. We went to the smaller walkie-talkie. Now, most of our members of my security team have Apple Watches. So what we do is we utilize the walkie-talkie feature built into the Apple Watch to communicate, which is even better because the Apple Watch walkie-talkie has unlimited range. I have been outside the United States and talked to people via the walkie-talkie feature on my watch. So my point is you should always look to discover new technologies that will help you work smarter. Because I can basically just touch my screen on my watch and say, there's a suspicious person at the back door. And the members of the security team will hear it. And who would think anything about me holding my watch up doing this? Nobody. So always look at how you can improve your operation. It's possible to do it. Walkie-talkies should be something that you should consider whether you have a small church or a small church. Give you another scenario. You walk outside the church and somebody's breaking in cars.
Brother Walker.
Yes.
Let me just add up to what you were saying. Also, if you can consider to have a panic button if some of you works in the bank, you probably know what I'm talking about.
Right.
If you have a security system in your church, you have cameras and all that kind of stuff, you can talk to them because they do provide panic button.
Right.
So what you do, you order whatever number you want, you give one to the pastor or anybody in the church. Whenever you press that panic button, send the message straight to the fire department and the police, so you don't have to talk. And if you have a security system like cameras, you obviously have somebody who is monitoring in a certain room. And that person also should be provided that, because he sees what is happening before you even around the church and inside the church. As long as you have your cameras working, that's the good person to communicate with you as well.
Well, thank you for that.
I really want to endorse that, my brother. The panic button is really a good tool to have. The one we have at Lithonia, it has a two-way communication where you can talk to first responders, and the button is actually strategically located throughout the building, and also there's a remote as well. So that is one of the fastest way to get first responders. Should there be an active shooter, you really need the first responders to be on the way immediately. So I definitely recommend that for all buildings.
And the one we have at our church, you can either put it around your neck, you can put it on your wrist, just like a watch, or you can just clip it on the belt or something like that. Either way you want to use it.
Well, thank you for that, because I was going to that next. So thank you. I don't have to cover that. But you're right. You should consider panic buttons, and they're tied into your alarm system. You can wear them wrist or around your neck. I also do security for the church and schools, and I've had panic buttons and bracelets. All the principals have them. The receptionists have them, so that they can very easily push a button, and that will notify the police that there's an emergency, and they roll around. We have them in the church, but basically for security purposes during service and during events, we rely on the walkie-talkies. And we have endeavored to train our congregation that if they see something, they need to say something, because that's your greatest security resource. The members of the church, there are many eyes normally in a service. And when they spot something, our congregation has been trained to just discreetly say something to the ushers. And that starts the process. When I was talking about walkie-talkies, I neglected to tell you who have them. The security team, the usher leader, the head elder, the head deacon. We have given them out to all of the people that make the service work, so that when an announcement is made, it goes out to all of the key people. All the elders hear it, all the deacons hear it, all the ushers hear it, the greeters hear it. Again, think of the bigger picture when you're coming up with your security plan. Alarm systems are something that I would recommend for every church, no matter what size it is. Real life scenario. We had an individual here recently that stayed in our church for 3 days, undetected. He was buzzed in the church, but he wasn't escorted out. And he was homeless. So instead of leaving, he found him a hiding place in the church. The second part of it was, if you have an alarm system, use it. For whatever reason, for 2 days, nobody cut the alarm system on when he left the building. So he was able to migrate throughout the facility undetected. On the third day, somebody armed the system, and when he moved, it set off the alarm. And we discovered he was in there. But alarm systems are something that you need. I mentioned earlier that I'm a bomb tech. Well, basically what that translates to is I know how to make bombs. In order to disarm a bomb, you have to know how to make it. So in a way, I'm a terrorist, or could be. If I had to bomb a facility, I would come in when nobody was there at night. I can construct an explosive device that would go off 12 hours later. In 12 hours, I could be in another country. But I could plan it and walk away. And unless you have a mechanism by which you check the bathrooms and offices looking for anything unusual, most people wouldn't see it. And you'd have a tragedy. An alarm system makes it difficult for a person to come into your facility undetected. And that's why that's very important. And that's one of those things that you need to consider when you're developing church security.
Wouldn't also camera system that also detected movement?
Exactly. And that's my third leg of this. Along with the alarm system, and some people don't want to put an alarm system in because it's an extra expense. Cameras. In the Berean church, we have, if I took a guess, probably about 25 or 30 cameras. They are on the outside, and we have 3 floors in the church. They're on all 3 floors. Now, notice I said that the guy remained undetected for 3 days. We don't have cameras in the stairwells. He was able to exist in the stairwell.
Do you now have cameras in the stairway?
We have cameras at the stairwell at the back of the church in the basement. But he came in, he was buzzed there. So he didn't come in that way. But I suspect what he was doing was he was hiding out. We have rooms in the church that don't have cameras. And the reality is, if you get in one of those rooms, that's fine. Now, here's the reality of cameras. Cameras record events. That's all they do. Most of the time, unless somebody's sitting there watching the camera, you are in a situation where you react to something after it occurred. So we have cameras. We also have cameras with remote viewing, which means I can sit at home right now and look at what's taking place in our church. Or I can do it in the middle of the night at any time. We've had people in our church at 1 o'clock in the morning. I've been sitting there looking at them. So cameras are an important aspect of your security. And you need to include that. Smaller churches, I still recommend cameras. You don't have to have as many. Parking lot area, entries where you can see who's approaching, and particularly who's inside. But it's something that you need to think about when you are developing your system. Let's do one more scenario because I think we're getting close to our time. And again, all of these I'm taking from real life scenarios that have happened in my church. And I'm sure that some of you have situations that have occurred in your church, but nobody has thought about it and tried to come up with a plan to prevent it from happening again. Okay, I got a good one. A member noticed that an usher was taking, well, no, I don't want to do that. Let's go to a mentally disturbed male enters the sanctuary. During the sermon, he stands up and begins to shout loudly. The ushers cannot get him to stop. What do? Now, let me finish scenario. It's a live broadcast. Pastor's preaching, you are broadcasting your service out. How do you handle that situation?
In our church, we get our elders and security team, maybe 2 individuals, to approach the individual, and without not placing hands or anything on them. That's always key. And try and talk them down and quietly get them to either leave the sanctuary, but to possibly, or to sit back down and quietly. But the key is don't lay hands on them, because that becomes more threatening to them, especially in their mental state. And hopefully that diffuses the situation as best as possible. But you wanted to talk them down, and hopefully your camera people are able to not pan the camera in that area for those few moments as that is being diffused. So that's kind of what we would do.
Have you actually had that happen in your church?
We have had, and we were familiar with the gentleman who had attended services before, and he sometimes would have behavioral changes, and we began to recognize him and to know how to handle him. So he just sad to say he just recently passed away.
Okay, thank you for that. That's what happens when you have a security plan that you thought out. In this situation, we did exactly that. What we have done is we have people in our congregation, members of the church, whose occupation is dealing with mentally disturbed people. So we have incorporated them indirectly into the security team. Anytime we have a mentally disturbed person who's obviously disturbed in the church, we alert them. If the person comes in and they just enjoy the service, fine. But if they hop up, like in my scenario, which was real, and they start to out-preach the preacher, then we have an elder, and that person who's trained to handle mentally disturbed people to come forward. And they try to quietly calm the person down. In the meantime, we have 2 or 3 members of the security team that approach that person. Now, in terms of training, we have had mental health specialists to come in, and they've held training sessions with deacons, ushers, elders, and the security team. And you're absolutely right. You never put your hands on a mentally disturbed person. You will have a fight on your hands. I learned that as a police officer.
Yes.
You don't do that because you think, okay, it's just me putting my hand on that person. But that person could see 20 people standing there.
Mm-hmm.
You could look like a monster to them. And you are reaching out to grab them. They react. So you never put your hands on them. If you have a situation where you have to forcibly remove the person, there are methods that you use to keep the person from being able to distract you. And you can actually walk a belligerent person out of the sanctuary without having to fight your way out.
Right.
So again, that's the importance of training and thinking through your program, because you have to expect the unexpected. And if you prepare for the unexpected, then you will be successful in handling any security issues that you might have in your church. So we've talked about the need. Yes. Yes.
I'm listening to what you guys saying about not getting physical with them, but when you look at the news report, when they people who are specially trained and get paid to handle this situation, they have to get physical. I don't see how you can expect us to deal with a person who's mentally challenged at the time of going through a crisis, and he wants to get physical. Then you still saying we can't get physical with him?
No,
and
I'm
my
not
other
saying
question
that.
is,
I'm not saying that.
There's
a thing called escalating force. And keep in mind, I was a guy that you call to handle those situations. There are levels.
Right.
As they escalate, you might have to escalate. But keep in mind, you're in a church with everybody looking.
I understand.
Well, we preach, turn the other cheek. So we have had to tussle with folks. And you know what the biggest problem was? The members of the church. You shouldn't have done that to him. You should have talked to him. Everybody becomes an expert after the fact. But what you have to do is remember you're in a church and you have to handle it in steps. Because a lot of times people have mental problems with threatening to do a whole lot of stuff, but they don't.
Right.
And since 1970 in the Seventh-day Adventist Church, I've only had to really physically put my hands on two people. One was a lady who had tremendous strength. And you need to understand, people that are mentally unbalanced have unnatural strength. That's why you don't put your hands on them, because if you do, real quickly, you'll understand you made a big mistake. But the lady was about 4'3", and she handled about 3 of us.
Yeah.
She actually bit one of my security team members. He had to go to the hospital to be checked. But that's not bad from 1970 until what, 2021. That's not a bad record, 2 people. But we have learned through trial and error how to handle situations like that. With their anger, you don't become angry. You always try to stay.
Question.
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
One other question. Now I'm gonna go back quiet again. What do you think about armed security among the members?
I'm going to give you my police department answer. I agree that you need to have somebody armed, but it needs somebody who's trained professionally. And that narrows it down to law enforcement. Now, as a police officer, we have been in situations where a person had a gun and everybody started shooting. And we've had police officers shoot other police officers.
Wow.
Now, here's what you have to understand. If everybody in church got a gun and everybody starts shooting, those bullets, when they come out, if you miss what you're shooting at, the bullet won't stop until it hits something. Do you really want that situation in a crowded church?
No.
The thing about police officers is they have to qualify every year with their weapons. If I had my choice, I want somebody who I know is qualified, who's been trained on when to shoot and when not to shoot and have a weapon. One of the biggest problems I had in my church was when I told the deacons, no, you can't bring guns. In fact, we have signs posted. No guns in the facility, even if you have a permit. The state of Georgia passed a law that gave the churches the right to decide whether they want guns in the churches. So we voted, the church board, the church body voted that in our church, you cannot bring weapons unless you are law enforcement. and it works. Because I don't want to have to worry about somebody who's untrained pulling a gun out, shoot me. In our church, I have a police officer who sits inside the sanctuary. He moves around. He wears a suit and tie. I'm armed. I have 2 police officers in the parking lot outside. And that's how we work. But church is not supposed to be an armed camp.
Right.
It's supposed to be a place of worship.
And I might add, sir, I know with the type of tithe that's collected at Berean, that's a major movement of money each Sabbath. So,
well, that goes into your planning. There have been times when we have moved $65,000, $70,000, $75,000 a Sabbath. And we have to get it safely from inside the sanctuary to the money counting area. Those are what I'm speaking of when I say you have to think it through and you have to have your planning. We've had people who come into the church to hang around to try to see our routine for taking the money up. They tried to figure out where the money is going. But because we have a network security in our church, members who observe strange things, security teams, cameras, we have never had an incident involving money.
Amen to that.
But again, the importance of thinking through your plan. So we've talked about the need to have security in a church because of society today. My question is, can you afford not to have security? Because you might have been blessed, but you also need to be prepared to expect the unexpected. We talked about the steps that you need to go through. You need to look at your money, how you transport your money. How would you handle an intruder in your church? How would you handle a mentally unstable person in your church? That's part of the planning for your training. The equipment for most churches, the simplest form are walkie-talkies. If you have communications, half the battle is won. Most of the time we have a situation, you can't figure out how to let everybody else know. And that's when you have a problem. So communications are, to me, one of the most important aspects. Communications, then you get your cameras, then you work on the locks, you work on the alarm. But the basic first thing you need a way of communicating. Lastly, you need to have training. We conduct training where we bring in experts. We bring in doctors. We bring in psychologists who talk to deacons, ushers, and security teams about how to handle mentally disturbed people. Believe it or not, you can do it. You can manage it. But you need to bring in the experts to talk to you and give you training on how to handle those problems. And most importantly, you need to sit down, look at your church operation, because all of them are different. And you need to figure out, what do you need training for? And it needs to be geared towards the unexpected. And if you can do that, then you will be okay. But you cannot afford in these days not to have some sort of training plan. And please, please put it in writing. Make it a part of your operations manual. Make it a part of your church policy. Because if it's not in writing, it doesn't exist. And if you have a scenario where something does go wrong, the first thing an attorney is going to ask you is, did you have a written plan? So in 2022, you need to have a written plan. And with that, I think we are out of time.
Yes. Actually, I think there's a brother that wanted to say something, but it's time for lunch. I don't know if you're going to allow him to say.
Well, no, I'm. If we want to go on, that's fine. But I know that we do have a lunchtime. Some people might want to take it. If you want to stay and talk, I'm available.
Okay, Brother Williams, go ahead.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah,
yes.
we can hear you.
Yes, Pastor. I understand what you're saying. If I worked in the Department of Correction, and I understand what you heard, you said something about the mental people on mental health. Medication, they become extremely strong. Cause I had to take down a person, me and the other guy, this guy was an older guy. And I couldn't believe how strong he was because he was on these mental health meds. And also about the cameras and communication is very important. Because I know with everything we said, you have to have this of documented communication cameras. You have to be ready and have stuff in place before it happens. You can't wait till it happens, then to get it in place. Stuff needs to be in place, and for you can put your hand on it and document it. And when we had to do any type of takedown, you have to have an incident reports that you have to follow with to make everything legal. So everything has to be in place when something does happen.
You're right. And one of the beauties of having police officers is that report becomes an official record.
Correct.
Because my position is if we have to put our hands on you, it warrants a report.
Right.
Now, if we're just leading you out the sanctuary, that's one level. But if we have to physically take you out the sanctuary, then the police are called in and they make a report.
Correct.
Give you an example of why that's important. We had a situation at our church a while back. My position was we needed to make an arrest, and we have made arrests at our church. The pastor didn't want to make the arrest. And I tried to warn him that anytime we put our hands on somebody, that's the proper thing to do. But I yielded to him. We didn't make an arrest. That Monday, this was on Saturday, that Monday, the person went down to Fulton County and attempted to take a warrant out on the pastor. Pastor ended up having to go to court. He had to get the conference attorney, had to take members of the church into the courtroom, and he had to defend himself. All because he would not allow the situation to be documented when it occurred. After that, what he said to me is, Brother Walker, you do what you have to do. But that's something you need to think about when you're doing your planning. What are the steps that you need to take? And I use the phrase, you use levels. You use levels. If a person, you have to talk to them, but they come along eventually, no problem. But what if you have to physically take that person out? That could create a problem for you because anytime you lay your hands on a person, they can sue you. And let me say that again. Anytime you put your hands on a person, depending upon the situation, you can be sued. So whatever you do, you need to think it through. And if you have to put your hands on a person, then you need to have a police report made.
Right.
And I would tell anybody, I know people don't want to spend the money on it. It's a necessary evil in 2022. If they just sit in the parking lot and be available if you call them, it takes less time for them to get in if you call 911.
One last question, sir. Do you do any consulting where you visit churches yourself?
That's what I do. I have my company is called Q&A Security Consultants. And I have been doing that for many years. I normally go down to Macon, to the Bethany Church, and I conduct training sessions there. I've done it for a lot of churches. That's what I do. I come in, I look at your building, I make recommendations to you in terms of how you can improve your security. I hold training sessions with the deacons and elders and ushers. That's what I do.
Hold on.
What's the phone number?
Hey, Brother Walker, can you put your contact information in the chat for me, please?
Yes, I will. And I give it to you for those who have pencils. My name is Horace Walker. H-O-R-A-C-E Walker. And my number is 404-247-0960. And I will type it in the chat now.
Thank you for that, Brother Walker. As we also have a school, and that's always been one of our concerns too, to make sure that, because we don't typically have all the same security personnel available at churches during school hours. So it's very important to make sure that the school is properly fortified.
Yeah, in fact, I for GAAA and BCJA and BCDC, I am the person who does the security. I designed the camera system for them, put in the panic buttons, and I've made recommendations on written procedures for intruder. Actually, the training they have, the intruder training, the inclement weather, I sort of put all that in writing. And I've been there now for 19 years. Actually, when they built the building, they consulted me in terms of the security for the building.
Okay.